Part 1. The freighter, Odyssey Dawn, drifted through the cold silence of deep space, far beyond the crowded lanes of human trade routes. Inside the dimly lit cockpit, Kyle Briggs leaned back in his worn pilot's chair, one hand resting on the control yoke, the other idly tapping a rhythm on his thigh. He was young for a deep-range hauler captain, only 28, but his eyes carried the tired look of someone who had seen too many empty stars and not enough homecomings. Across from him, Lena Torres sat hunched over a flickering console, her fingers dancing across the screen as she ran diagnostics on the ship's aging life support system. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy knot, and a faint smudge of grease marked her cheek. "Anything on the long-range sweep?" Kyle asked, his voice low. Lena didn't look up. "Just static and... wait." She paused, her fingers freezing mid-air. "There's a signal. Weak but repeating." Kyle straightened. "Origin?" "Cygnus arm, outer fringe. Encrypted, but it's not ours. Not Centauri either." She turned to him, her brow furrowed. "It's Cathar." A chill ran through the cabin, colder than the void outside. The Cathar Dominion, the same alien empire that had attacked Earth's outer colonies 6 months ago, only to be driven back by a desperate, chaotic defense that no strategist had believed possible. Humanity had won that fight through sheer stubbornness, jury-rigged weapons, and pilots who refused to die quietly. But peace had never come, only silence. Now that silence was breaking. Lena patched the signal through the main speaker. At first it was just noise, hisses and clicks, alien tones that grated on human ears. Then slowly a translation filter kicked in, layering English over the guttural Cathar speech. The voice was calm, deliberate, and utterly devoid of emotion. To all systems within listening range, the Cathar Dominion hereby declares total war upon the species known as Homo sapiens. Not upon their governments, not upon their fleets, upon their very existence. Let it be known, no human shall be spared. No child hidden, no world left standing. This is not a conflict of territory or resources. This is extermination, the message repeated, then cut off. Kyle stared at the console as if it might bite him. "They're not just mad," he said quietly. "They're scared." Lena nodded. "And scared empires make stupid mistakes." Back on Earth, in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Cole Mitchell stood before a wall-sized display showing the same message, now flagged red across every human and allied network. He was in his late 40s with close-cropped gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. Around him, members of the United Earth Defense Council argued in hushed, urgent tones. "They're trying to isolate us," said one delegate from Luna. "Calling it a species war makes it personal. No neutral party will risk siding with us now." Cole didn't turn. Good, that silenced them. He finally faced the room. The Cathar think in straight lines. Hierarchy, honor, strength through order. We beat them last time because we don't fight fair. We don't follow rules. We patch engines with duct tape and win battles with grocery store drones. They called us pests. Now they're calling us a threat. That means we got under their skin. A junior analyst cleared her throat. "But sir, if they're serious about total war..." "They are," Cole said. "Which means we stop reacting. We start thinking like predators." While Earth debated, another message arrived. Not from the Cathar, but from Mars Colony Theta. It was short, sent through a civilian channel, encrypted with a child's coding script. The sender identified only as NP. The content was a string of coordinates, timestamps, and energy signatures that made no sense to most systems. But Lena Torres recognized it instantly when Kyle forwarded it to her. "It's Cathar fleet movement," she whispered, eyes wide. "They're not heading for Earth. They're converging on Varel Prime." Varel Prime was a neutral trade hub, a bustling station orbiting a gas giant in the serene expanse. Humans, Zenthari, even a few Cathar merchants operated there under strict peace accords. Over 12,000 humans lived and worked on Varel, mostly engineers, traders, and families. No military presence, no defenses beyond basic security drones. "They're going to make an example of it," Kyle said, already powering up the Odyssey Dawn's engines. "Show the galaxy what happens when you harbor humans." Lena was already rerouting power to the thrusters. "We're 3 days out at best. We'll make it in 2, Kyle said, slamming the throttle forward. On Mars, 16-year-old Noah Patel sat cross-legged on his bunk. his Neuralink headset glowing faintly blue. He'd intercepted the Cathar comms by accident while testing a new data sifter program he'd built from scrap parts. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even supposed to be online. The colony had strict curfews after the last cyber raid. But Noah had a gift. He saw patterns in chaos. And the Cathar fleet movements weren't random. They formed a tightening noose around Varel Prime, timed to strike during the station's weekly supply rotation, when civilian traffic would be highest. He tried warning the local authorities. They dismissed him as a kid with an overactive imagination. So he did the only thing he could. He sent the data into the void, hoping someone somewhere would listen. That someone was Lena. Now, as the Odyssey Dawn tore through hyperspace corridors it wasn't rated for, alarms blared softly in the cockpit.
Hull stress.
Overheating core. But Kyle didn't slow down. He thought of his cousin who worked in Varel's hydroponics bay. He thought of the kids in the station's school dome, learning Earth history like it was ancient myth. Lena worked silently beside him, patching systems, rerouting coolant, whispering commands to the ship's stubborn AI. She didn't say it, but she knew they might be too late. Still, they flew. Back on Earth, Cole Mitchell had already dispatched the Epsilon Shield, a fast response destroyer under Captain Dana Ruiz. She was a legend, survivor of the Battle of Titan's Ring, where she'd held off 3 Cathar cruisers with nothing but a damaged frigate and a cargo of mining explosives. If anyone could organize an evacuation in time, it was her. But even Dana couldn't move faster than light. As the Odyssey Dawn dropped out of warp near Varel Prime's system, the first Cathar warships appeared on the edge of sensor range, sleek, black, and bristling with weapons. They moved with terrifying coordination, forming a blockade around the station. Kyle's hands tightened on the controls. They're not attacking yet. Lena checked the comms. They're broadcasting something new. The message played over the speakers, this time in perfect, chilling English. Human vessels approaching Varel Prime. Turn back. This is your only warning. Any attempt to interfere will result in immediate annihilation. Kyle looked at Lena. She looked back, her eyes steady. We're not turning back, he said. And with that, the Odyssey Dawn, a battered freighter with peeling paint and a coffee stain on the nav console, accelerated toward the blockade, its running lights flickering like a heartbeat in the dark. Somewhere below, on the surface of Varel Prime, Noah Patel's message finally reached the station's central network. Alarms began to blare. People ran. Doors sealed. And high above, in the silent theater of space, the second war between humanity and the Cathar Dominion had already begun. Not with a bang, but with a freighter refusing to look away. Batu. The Odyssey Dawn shuddered as it crossed into Varel Prime's orbital perimeter. Kyle kept his eyes locked on the forward screen, jaw tight. 3 Cathar destroyers hung in the black like waiting predators, their hulls smooth and dark, weapons ports glowing faintly red. They hadn't fired yet. That meant they were watching. Testing. Lena's fingers flew across her console. I'm patching into Varel's emergency band. Civilian channels are jammed, but I found a backdoor through the hydroponics network. Someone left a maintenance port open. Who? A kid named Noah Patel. He's the one who sent the data from Mars. Kyle blinked. A kid? 16. And he just gave us a way in. On the surface of Varel Prime, chaos unfolded in slow motion. The station's curved corridors filled with people rushing toward evacuation pods. Alarms wailed, lights flickered, and overhead screens flashed urgent messages in a dozen languages. In a small utility room near Sector G, Noah sat hunched over a jury-rigged terminal, sweat beading on his forehead. His Neuralink headset pulsed softly as he fed false sensor readings into the station's orbital defense grid. Old Cathar turrets left over from a failed trade deal years ago. They were supposed to be offline, but Noah had reactivated them quietly over the past week just in case. Now he was rewriting their targeting protocols. Not to shoot the Cathar, but to look like they might. Above, the Odyssey Dawn received a tight beam transmission. It was Captain Dana Ruiz of the Epsilon Shield. Her voice was calm, but urgency hummed beneath it. Briggs Torres, you're early. Good. I'm 10 minutes out, but Varel's main hangar is already compromised. Cathar dropships breached the lower docks. I need you to hold their attention while I get my shuttles in. How? Kyle asked. Make them think Earth's main fleet is coming. I know it's crazy, but we don't have time for sane. Lena's eyes lit up. I can do that. She pulled up the freighter's comms array and began stitching together old fleet signatures, ghost echoes from past battles, distorted and amplified. She layered them with fake transponder codes, emergency pings, even simulated engine harmonics from ships that didn't exist. Within minutes, the Cathar sensors would see not one freighter, but the vanguard of a massive human armada. Sending it now, she said. The effect was immediate. On the Cathar command ship, alarms blared. Commander Vraxikel, a tall, scarred warrior with eyes like polished obsidian, stared at the tactical display as dozens of human warships seemed to materialize out of nowhere. His second-in-command hissed in confusion. Impossible. Their fleet is scattered. They have no reserves. Vraxikel didn't answer. He had seen human tricks before. At Titan's Ring, they'd used cargo drones as missiles. At Ganymede, they'd hidden fighters inside asteroid haulers. These creatures did not fight with honor. They fought with lies. Hold position, he ordered. Scan for deception. But doubt had taken root. The Cathar formation tightened, weapons powering down slightly as they waited for confirmation. That hesitation gave Dana the window she needed. The Epsilon shield dropped out of warp behind Varel's moon, silent and dark. Its shuttles launched like shadows, slipping into the station's upper bays while the Cathar watched the fake fleet on the other side. Inside Varel, Noah's hands trembled as he rerouted power from the station's main reactor to the old defense turrets. One by one, they powered up, rusty, slow, but armed. He didn't plan to fire them. He just needed them to look ready. On his screen, he saw Cathar dropships hovering near the lower levels, disgorging armored soldiers into the maintenance tunnels. He sent a burst of false data. Turret Array Gamma online. Targeting lock acquired on Dropship Cluster 2. The Cathar troops froze. Their commander barked orders. For a full minute, nothing moved. That minute saved hundreds of lives. Back in orbit, Kyle watched the Cathar ships shift position. They're buying it. For now, Lena said. But they'll figure it out soon. Their AI is too good. As if on cue, a new signal cut through the static. It was Vraxikel himself. His voice translated into cold, precise English. Freighter, Odyssey Dawn, your deception is noted. Admirable for vermin. But your species' end is written in the stars. We will burn Varel Prime to ash, and your ghosts will whisper our name in the dark. The transmission ended. Then, without warning, the Cathar ships opened fire, not on the Odyssey Dawn, but on Varel Prime itself. Energy beams lanced down, striking the station's outer shield. The barrier flickered, then held. But not for long. They're using a biopulse charge, Lena gasped. It disrupts organic-based shielding. Varel's system runs on biogel cores. Kyle's stomach dropped. How long? Minutes. Maybe less. Below, alarms turned from urgent to desperate. Red lights bathed the corridors. People screamed as gravity fluctuated. In the utility room, Noah's screen went dark, then rebooted with a warning. Shield integrity at 23%. He didn't panic. He typed faster. Uploading a final script, he triggered a cascade failure in the station's internal comms, flooding every Cathar soldier's helmet feed with looping emergency alerts in their own language. It wouldn't stop them, but it would confuse them. Buy more time. Outside, the Epsilon Shield's shuttles were full. Dana's voice crackled over Kyle's comm. We've got 8 200 souls aboard. More are still inside. I'm sending 2 shuttles back for a last sweep. You don't have time, Kyle said. I know. Then the unthinkable happened. Varel's shield collapsed. A wave of emerald energy washed over the station, followed by silence. Every electronic system, lights, doors, life support, went dead. Even the Odyssey Dawn's instruments flickered and died for 3 terrifying seconds before rebooting. The Cathar had used their biopulse weapon. But Varel didn't explode. It just stopped. In the sudden quiet, Kyle saw something move on his rear camera. A small shuttle painted with medical insignias lifted off from the darkened station. It wobbled, engine sputtering, but it flew. That's Noah's sector, Lena whispered. The shuttle wasn't heading for the Epsilon shield. It was heading straight for them. Kyle didn't hesitate. Open the cargo bay. Full thrusters. The Odyssey Dawn turned, engines roaring and matched speed with the tiny craft. Inside, Noah clung to the pilot's seat, pale but alive. He'd hotwired the shuttle using parts from a broken maintenance bot. Behind him, 23 other survivors, mostly kids from the colony school, huddled in silence. As the freighter's bay doors closed, the Cathar ships finally turned their full attention to the Odyssey Dawn. They knew now it was just one ship, one trick, one last act of human defiance. But they also saw the Epsilon shield pulling away, its engines flaring as it jumped to warp with thousands of lives aboard. Vraxkel could have chased it. He could have finished Varel. Instead, he ordered his fleet to hold because something had changed. These humans didn't just run. They came back. They saved children. They lied with machines and fought with hope. And in that moment, the Cathar commander understood why his empire had lost the first war. It wasn't about weapons. It was about what humans were willing to do for each other. As the Odyssey Dawn limped away, trailing smoke and coolant, Kyle looked at Noah through the cockpit window. The boy gave a weak thumbs up. Lena sighed. "We lost Varel," Kyle nodded. "But we didn't lose them. And in the cold dark, with a freighter full of survivors and a sky full of enemies, that was enough." Part 3. The silence after Varel Prime's fall was heavier than space itself. Aboard the Odyssey Dawn, no one spoke for hours. The survivors slept in the cargo bay, wrapped in thermal blankets, their faces pale under the dim emergency lights. Noah sat near the rear hatch, knees drawn to his chest, staring at the floor like it might give him answers. Kyle kept the ship on a slow drift, engines idling, while Lena monitored long-range sensors for any sign of pursuit. None came. The Cathar had vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving only wreckage and ghosts behind. Back on Earth, the mood was grim. News of Varel's destruction spread fast. 12,000 lives lost, a neutral station wiped out. The Galactic Concord, the loose alliance of alien species that governed interstellar law, called an emergency session. Most members blamed humanity. "You provoked them," said the Zarathi ambassador, her voice sharp. "Your reckless defiance has brought fire upon the innocent." Only the Zenthari elder Talus remained silent, his ancient eyes unreadable. Admiral Cole Mitchell stood alone in the council chamber after the others left. He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He simply said, "We'll answer for our actions when the war is over. Right now, we answer with action." His next order came within the hour. Operation Iron Mercy, a strike mission against the Cathar command vessel that had led the attack on Varel. Intelligence suggested it was refueling near the asteroid belt of Sol 9, far from Earth but close enough to strike. The weapon of choice? A swarm of modified mining drones, each packed with electromagnetic pulse warheads designed to fry the Cathar ship's neural core without destroying it completely. The goal wasn't to kill, it was to cripple, to send a message that humans could reach them anywhere. The pilot chosen for the mission was Marcus Boone. He was quiet, lean, and carried himself like a man who had already said goodbye to the world. His younger sister Ellie had been on Varel Prime. She worked in the Children's Learning Center. Her last message had been a voice note. "Tell Marcus I finished his model ship. It flies great." He hadn't listened to it again. Marcus trained for the mission in silence. He ran simulations, tested drone controls, memorized the Cathar ship's schematics. But something in his eyes had changed. Where there had been fire, now there was ice. The day of the launch, Kyle and Lena stood on the observation deck of Lunar Dock 7, watching Marcus board his single-seat interceptor, the Razor Finch. The ship was small, fast, and painted matte black. It carried no name, only a serial number. "He'll be fine," Lena said, though she didn't sound sure. Kyle just nodded. He's got nothing left to lose. Deep in the Sol 9 belt, Marcus approached the Cathar vessel under cloak. It loomed like a mountain of obsidian, its surface smooth and seamless. His drones deployed silently, gliding toward the ship's primary sensor array. Everything went according to plan, until his long-range scan picked up something unexpected. Life signs. Not just warriors, civilians, dozens of them. Cathar children, elders, even bonded mates, locked in holding bays near the engine core. His hands froze on the controls. The mission briefing had said the ship was a pure war vessel. No non-combatants, but here they were, scared, trapped, just like the humans on Varel. Marcus thought of Ellie. He thought of the kids in the school dome, running as the lights went out. And he hesitated. That hesitation cost him. A Cathar patrol drone spotted the swarm. Alarms blared across the enemy ship. Defensive turrets swiveled. Energy beams sliced through space, vaporizing half the drones in seconds. Marcus tried to abort, to pull back, but it was too late. The Razorfinch took a direct hit to its starboard wing. Engines sputtered. Warning lights flashed red. He was going down. Back at command, Cole watched the feed go dark. Boone respond. Marcus, do you copy? Static. Then a weak voice. I'm hit. Losing power. Can't jump. Cole's jaw tightened. Hold on. We're sending... No, Marcus cut in. Don't risk another ship. I made a mistake. I'll handle it. But before he could say more, a new signal appeared on the main screen. The Odyssey Dawn, far off course, burning hard towards Sol 9. Kyle's voice came through, calm but firm. Admiral, with respect, we're not leaving him. Lena was already calculating intercept vectors, her fingers flying. We can make it in 12 minutes if we push the core past safety limits. Cole stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he nodded. Do it. But if you're not out in 15, I'm cutting the link. No heroics. Aye, sir, Kyle said. Inside the crippled Razorfinch, Marcus watched his oxygen levels drop. He thought about ejecting, but his pod wouldn't survive the Cathar patrols. He thought about sending Ellie's voice note one last time, but he couldn't bring himself to hear her voice again. Then he saw it. The Odyssey Dawn, streaking through the asteroid field like a comet. Engines glowing white-hot, you idiot, Marcus whispered. But he was smiling. Kyle brought the freighter in low, matching the interceptor's spin. Lena opened the cargo bay remotely while Kyle used the ship's tractor beam to stabilize Marcus's craft. It was a dangerous maneuver, too close and they'd both be torn apart by debris. Too slow and the Cathar would lock on, but Kyle had flown through worse. With a final lurch, the Razorfinch slid into the bay. Marcus stumbled out, helmet off, face streaked with sweat and soot. Lena was there with a medkit. Kyle stayed in the cockpit, already plotting their escape route. They didn't have long. As the Odyssey Dawn turned to flee, the Cathar ship unleashed its final weapon, a biopulse charge, the same kind used on Varel. It wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed at the entire sector. A wave of emerald energy rolled outward, silent and deadly. Every human-made system within 1,000,000 kilometers went dark. The Odyssey Dawn's lights died. Engines stalled. Life support coughed and fell silent. For 30 terrifying seconds, they floated in total blackness, breathing recycled air that grew thinner by the second. Then slowly the backup generators kicked in. Lights flickered back on. Engines groaned to life. They were alive. But Varel Prime was gone. And now so was any hope of hiding. In the cargo bay, Marcus sat beside Noah, who handed him a canteen of water. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Above them, Kyle guided the battered freighter toward the nearest safe jump point. Behind them, the Cathar command ship hung in the dark, its victory hollow. They had destroyed a station, crippled a pilot, and silenced a fleet. But they had also shown their hand. They were afraid, and fear made even the strongest empire vulnerable. Back on Earth, Cole Mitchell received the mission report. Operation Iron Mercy had failed, but something else had been gained. Humanity had shown mercy and paid for it. That truth would echo across the stars. And somewhere in the void, a freighter full of broken people flew on, carrying not just survivors, but something far more dangerous to the Cathar Dominion. Hope. At 4, after the failure at Sol 9, Earth stood alone. The Galactic Concord cut off all aid, trade routes closed. Even species that once called humans allies now turned their ships away. In the council chambers of distant worlds, whispers spread. Humanity was too wild, too emotional, too dangerous to trust. They had tried mercy and it had cost them everything. Now they were on their own. But not everyone agreed. On the edge of known space beyond the rings of the dead star Zenthara, a small vessel approached the hidden outpost of the Zenthari. It was not a warship. It carried no weapons. Only a single human envoy, Admiral Cole Mitchell, and a data crystal containing the full record of Varel Prime's fall, including Noah's logs and Marcus's sensor readings of Cathar civilians aboard the command ship. The Zenthari had not spoken to outsiders in over 200 years. Once they were slaves of the Cathar Dominion, forced to build their war machines, their cities, their empire. They had broken free through sacrifice and silence. Now they watched. They waited, Elder Talus met Cole in a chamber lit only by soft blue moss. He did not speak at first. He simply held the data crystal in his long, three-fingered hand and let its light play across his wrinkled face. When he finally spoke, his voice was like wind through dry reeds. "You showed mercy when you could have killed," Cole nodded. "And they called it weakness." Talus smiled faintly. "The Cathar do not understand mercy. To them it is a flaw, but we know better. Mercy is the mark of a species that chooses its own path, not one forced by fear." He turned to a wall of living stone, where images shimmered like water. "The Dominion's strength is its pride. Its weakness is the same. They believe order is power. They cannot imagine chaos as a weapon, but you fight like storms, unpredictable, relentless. You do not march, you swarm. You do not surrender, you adapt." Cole leaned forward. "Then help us." Talus did not answer with words. Instead, he gave Cole a small device, a neural key that unlocked Zenthari archives. Inside were star charts, fleet patterns, and one critical secret: the location of the Cathar data core on the ice moon of Core 7. It held everything: their war plans, ship designs, even the schematics of a new weapon they called the Planet Cracker. Back on Earth, Cole gathered his team. Kyle, Lena, Marcus, and Noah sat around a table in a dim briefing room. Dana Ruiz stood by the door, her arm in a sling from the Varel evacuation, but her eyes sharp as ever. "The Zenthari confirmed it," Cole said. "The Planet Cracker is real. It's designed to split a world's core with a single shot. Earth is the target." Noah's breath caught. "When?" "Within 3 weeks. They're building it in orbit around Core 7. Lena tapped her tablet. "Core 7 is deep in Cathar space. Heavily guarded. No human ship has ever come within a light year of it and lived. That's why we're not sending a ship," Cole said. "We're sending ghosts." Over the next days, Lena and Noah worked in a sealed lab beneath Mars Colony Theta. They built something new, a network of signal emitters, AI-driven decoys, and phantom transponders that could mimic entire fleets using nothing but old comms data and clever math. They called it the Ghost Fleet. It wouldn't fire a shot. It wouldn't carry soldiers. But it would look real enough to make the Cathar hesitate. Meanwhile, Marcus volunteered for the most dangerous part of the plan. He would go to Core 7, not to fight, but to infiltrate. Using a stolen Cathar scout pod and a Zenthari cloaking field, he would land on the ice moon and breach the data core. His mission: download the Planet Cracker's control codes and plant a virus that would delay its launch. He didn't tell anyone he was doing it for Ellie. He didn't need to. The night before departure, Marcus sat alone in the hangar, cleaning his sidearm. Kyle found him there. "You don't have to do this," Kyle said. Marcus didn't look up. "Someone does. You're not just a weapon, Marcus." That made him pause. He finally met Kyle's eyes. "Then what am I?" "A man who still cares," Kyle said. "That's why you hesitated at Sol 9. That's why you're going back. Not for revenge. For the people left behind." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." The infiltration began under cover of a solar flare. Marcus's pod slipped through Cathar patrols like a shadow, landing in a crevasse near the data core facility. The moon was frozen, silent, its surface glittering under twin stars. He moved fast, using thermal cloaks and jamming fields to avoid patrols. Inside the facility, the air hummed with energy. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent circuits. Cathar tech was alive, growing, thinking. Noah guided him remotely from Mars, feeding him paths through the security grid. Left at the next junction. "Avoid the red veins, they're sensor clusters." Marcus followed the voice in his ear, heart pounding. He reached the core chamber, a vast dome filled with floating data orbs, each one holding secrets of war. He plugged in the Zenthari key. Files began to stream. Then he saw it. Not just plans for the Planet Cracker, but something worse. The Cathar weren't just targeting Earth. They planned to use the weapon on every human colony, one by one, until nothing remained. Total erasure. His hands shook as he uploaded the virus. It would buy time, maybe a week, maybe 2. But it wasn't enough. He needed more. So he did something reckless. He copied the entire core archive onto a backup drive and strapped it to his chest. Then he triggered the facility's emergency purge protocol, a failsafe that would melt the core in 60 seconds. Alarms blared. Lights turned red. Marcus ran. Outside, Cathar drones swarmed the surface. He barely made it to his pod before the ice beneath him cracked from the heat of the melting core. As he launched into orbit, explosions lit the moon below. He was alive, and he had the data. Back on Earth, Cole watched the feed from Marcus's pod. When the signal stabilized, he said only one word: "Welcome home." But the war wasn't over. The planet cracker was still coming, and now humanity had to decide, would they hide? Or would they stand and fight with everything they had? In the quiet that followed, Lena looked at Noah. "You ready?" Noah took a deep breath. "Let's scare them." And across a dozen hidden stations, the ghost fleet began to wake. Part 5. The planet cracker hung in the void near the asteroid belt of Sol 9, a monstrous ring of black metal and pulsing energy. It looked less like a weapon and more like a god's angry thought made real. Inside its core, a singularity hummed, waiting to be unleashed on Earth. The Cathar fleet surrounded it like priests guarding a shrine. Their ships were silent, proud, certain of victory. They had hunted humanity across the stars, and now at last they would erase them from existence. But they did not see the ghosts. Hidden among the asteroids, the human fleet waited. It was not real. It was a web of signals, drones, and old ship echoes stitched together by Lena and Noah. From the Cathar sensors, it looked like 50 warships, battleships, carriers, even the mythical Titan's Wrath, a ship that had never existed. The ghost fleet moved in perfect formation, engines flaring, comms chattering with fake orders. It was a lie painted in light and data, and the Cathar believed it. Commander Vraxkel stared at his display, his claws tightening on the armrest. Impossible. Their navy was broken at Varel. They adapt, his second-in-command hissed. Like vermin in the walls, Vraxkel snarled. Then we crushed the walls. He ordered the fleet to form a defensive ring around the planet cracker. Big mistake. The asteroids were too close. The corridors too narrow. Their massive ships could not maneuver freely. They were trapped by their own pride. That was when the real attack began. From the shadow of a dead comet, the Epsilon shield emerged, engines silent, weapons hot. Captain Dana Ruiz sat in her command chair, her sling gone, her eyes sharp. Beside her, Kyle Briggs piloted a retrofitted mining tug, the Iron Mule, loaded with stolen Cathar resonance charges. It was slow, ugly, and utterly deadly if it got close enough. "Ghost Fleet, hold position," Dana said calmly. "Make them sweat." On the Cathar ships, confusion spread. Why weren't the humans attacking? Why were they just watching? Then a new signal cut through the noise. It was Noah, broadcasting from Mars on an open channel, his voice steady despite his fear. "Cathar Command, this is Human Station Theta. Your planet cracker's guidance system has been compromised. Attempting launch will result in self-targeting." Vraxkel laughed, a harsh grating sound. A child's bluff, but doubt flickered in his eyes. He ordered a system check. And in that moment of hesitation, Kyle fired the Iron Mule's thrusters and charged straight for the planet cracker. Alarms screamed across the Cathar fleet. Fighters launched. Energy beams lanced out. The Iron Mule took hits. Its hull cracked, its left engine exploded. But Kyle held course. He wasn't aiming for the weapon. He was aiming for the command ship docked at its base. Inside the Epsilon shield, Dana gave the order. Now, the ghost fleet vanished. Not destroyed, just switched off. 1 second, 50 ships. The next empty space, the Cathar reeled. Where did they go? Were they cloaked? Were they behind them? In the chaos, Dana's real fleet, just 3 destroyers and 2 frigates, slipped from hiding spots inside the largest asteroids. They fired everything they had: railguns, plasma torpedoes, even old-fashioned kinetic slugs. Cathar shields flared and failed. 2 cruisers broke apart in silent fireballs, but Vraxkel did not retreat. He saw Kyle's tug closing in. He knew what it carried. With a roar, he ordered his flagship to detach from the planet cracker and intercept. Kyle saw it coming. He didn't dodge. He aimed right for it. "Lena," he said into the comm, voice calm. "Trigger the virus." Back on Mars, Lena hit the final key. The planet cracker's core flickered. Its targeting system reset. And instead of locking onto Earth, it locked onto the nearest massive energy source, the Cathar flagship. "No," Vraxkel whispered as the warning lights turned red. Kyle ejected from the Iron Mule, just as it slammed into the flagship's hull. The resonance charges detonated, not with fire, but with a wave of crushing sound that shattered the ship's internal structure. At the same moment, the planet cracker fired. A beam of twisted gravity lanced out, not toward Earth but into the heart of the Cathar command vessel. The ship folded in on itself, torn apart by forces it could not resist. Braxkel had no time to scream. He simply ceased to be. The explosion lit the asteroid belt like a second sun. Silence fell. The remaining Cathar ships drifted, leaderless, confused. Their pride was broken. Their weapon turned against them. Their certainty gone, Dana ordered her fleet to hold fire. She opened a channel on all frequencies. Cathar vessels. Stand down. This ends now. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Cathar ships powered down their weapons. They did not surrender, but they stopped fighting. A new message came through, not from a warship, but from a Cathar diplomatic shuttle. It was short, translated into clear English. Congratulations. You have taught us fear. On Earth, people watched the news in stunned silence. In Houston, Cole Mitchell stood on a quiet hill outside the city, looking up at the stars. The war wasn't over. There would be more battles, more losses. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer prey. They were a force the galaxy could not ignore. Aboard the Odyssey Dawn, now docked at Lunar Station, Kyle sat with Lena, Marcus, and Noah. No one spoke. They didn't need to. They had done what no one thought possible. They had fought not with hate, but with cleverness, courage, and care for each other. Far away on a hidden moon, Elder Talus watched the stars and smiled. The storm had passed, and from its wake something new would grow, and in the endless dark Earth's light still shone, small, stubborn, and unbroken.